of a money sword,
Money sword.
rather long.
Yeah.
A Standard Oil company of which Rockefeller started, signed by Flagler. They say that money doesn't grow on trees. Here's an example of what's called a money tree. So, one of the things that I know you like and specialize in is state-sponsored counterfeit notes.
Ooh.
So like what the Nazis made during World War II is a good example, of which we also have many of them like this, which the Nazis made during World War II. This is a copy of the actual British money made during that time. But we also, more importantly, have from America. In 1776, the Americans had their own money, of course, but they also made, the British made counterfeits of the American money at the time. Here's an example. This is crossed out by the Americans, being a counterfeit of the U.S. money at the time. And the Americans, to counter that, made counterfeit detecting monies to give to certain agencies so that they would not be ripped off by the English, who were trying to destabilize the early American government.
Gotcha. So that would be like a guide for somebody to compare to another note? Okay.
So that they could compare the signatures, etc.
Yeah.
Which was, so that's one of the things that we specialize in. Another thing that we specialize in, for example, they say that money doesn't grow on trees. Here's an example of what's called a money tree.
Interesting.
This is a copy of, not a copy, this is an original of, they would cast these coins, which are these oval pieces here. They would cast them and they would pull them off and file off the edges there. This coin, which is the 100 mon of Japan, was the first coin in Admiral Peary's collection in 1853 when he came with the Black Fleet from America to Japan. That was this.
Interesting. So that's how they used to produce those coins, was on trees like that?
On trees like that and break them off. And we have a lot of other interesting primitive money. Here's a piece of primitive money from the Congo made in the shape of a bell. Or here are manillas. Both the English and the French made these to trade with the African natives in the 17 and 1800s. They would buy gold and other precious metals because the Africans treasured copper more than they did gold because it was shiny and it was heavy, etc. So that's what that was. And then there are also examples. We also have, for example, here is an example of a money sword.
Money sword.
Which you can see is rather long.
Yeah.
And the way this was used was that when somebody got married in the Congo, the parents of the wife would give this to their future son-in-law.
Okay.
So that the wife could use this, and the husband could make it into an instrument that she could use for farming or for cooking, etc.
Okay.
If the marriage turned out to be a flop, the husband would have to give these back to the original in-laws, besides giving back the wife. So maybe they would require 50 or 100 of these to buy a wife in those days.
Okay.
So that's what that is, just to give you an example.
What is that in USD?
in
Like what?
USD,
What is the monetary equivalent?
well, let me tell you. In the 1890s, that was equivalent to 5 shillings, 5 English shillings.
Just 5 shillings.
Just 5 shillings. But then again, there's high inflation, etc. 5 shillings may have been worth, a week's pay.
Okay.
I don't know, but
That sounds about right.
that's what that might be. So that's another thing. Another thing we sell a lot of is error notes, U.S. errors, for example. Here's an example just to give you some idea
Yeah.
of a piece of paper money where the back, you see, was printed.
Yeah, the serial number is on the wrong side.
Exactly, right, exactly. So that's what that is. And then we have what's called Notgeld. Many people think the word Notgeld refers to not money, but it really means emergency money that was made in Germany after World War I.
Okay.
And there are many examples, but these examples are made of fabric, not
interesting,
not of paper.
Why are they made of fabric?
Just a different gimmick. These were really made to sell to collectors, not to sell to, not to be used really. During the war, during World War I, they had made them to be actually used, but they became so popular. There was no money in circulation during the war because they were using the metal to make bullets and the like.
Right.
So all of that disappeared. So they made small change in terms of paper.
Okay.
It became so popular, that those papers, that all the cities of Germany, every single one of them, made 10, 20, 50 different types of Notgeld. They made it out of all sorts of things. We have, in general, 95 or 98% was made out of paper, but some percentage was made out of fabric.
Okay.
Some out of aluminum. For example, the Zeppelin factory, the people who made the blimps, they made it out of aluminum.
Okay.
They made it out of rubber, they made it out of wood, they made it out of leather, etc. So that's what that is.
Interesting.
We have money, for example, from Tibet, which, as you know, no longer really exists. It's now of Chinese. Here's an example, nice example. You see this neat, let me make sure it's on the right. You see this, of this
some kind of beast or something.
Yeah, like a male and female beast.
Yeah, something like that. It's cool. They're very ornate. I like that.
Very ornate, yes. Another thing, we do a lot with Disney currency.
Disney money.
And a lot of military payment certificates. I don't know if you know that during when America had campaigns overseas, like in Vietnam, for example, instead of using American money to pay the soldiers overseas, they made special money. Here's an example. And it's got a B-52 airplane on the backside.
It's pretty cool.
And they would use this so that they wouldn't use the U.S. dollar to destabilize the local currency, so to speak. So that's what that is. We have, for example, stereo cards from the Panama Canal, which, as you know, our current president would like to take over. It is interesting because we also have coins dated 1984, which was the 70th anniversary of the completion of the Panama Canal. We have Panamanian coins from that year as well. Let me show you some other interesting things. So we do a lot with tokens, and here, for example, is a dog tag from Chicago from 1908 in the shape of an 8, as you can see.
Yeah.
Another thing we do a lot of is, because we're here in Atlanta, we do a lot of Coca-Cola related. You know, Coca-Cola is from here in Atlanta.
Okay.
So we have, for example, a specimen stock sheet.
Wow.
From that.
So if you wanted to invest in Coca-Cola back in the 70s or 80s, that's what you would use.
Right. But this is a specimen, not a actual stock certificate. They have thousands of stock certificates, but very few, very rare to have a specimen of a stock certificate.
Yeah.
We also have from a Coca-Cola bottler in 1902 named Crawford Johnson, a token of his. He was an original Coca-Cola bottler, I believe, in Alabama. Another thing which is interesting, for example, is during World War II, they would hand out, the Japanese during the war would hand out bags with various medicines, not over-the-counter type medicines. Mm-hmm. And this is such a bag from a company, from a drug company that was 700 years old in Japan. Wow. So that's what that is. For example, we also have sheets of paper money from the U.S., like this is, from a company called Knox in New York State.
Any relation to Fort Knox?
No relation to Fort Knox. But what we do have is a sheet of currency. Again, I was mentioning to you before that the individual states made currency. This is from the state of Rhode Island. You can see Rhode Island here. They would make a sheet like this. They would print it on both sides like this, which is what that is.
Very cool.
Also, for example, we have sheets of paper money from France during the French Revolution.
Oh.
In effect, the French Revolution came about because they had lent so much money to the Americans, to the American Revolution, that they had run out of money, and so they started printing their own money. This money was often used in places like Detroit, which was a French area at the time, in Louisiana, which was also a French area, etc.
Okay.
So that's what that is. We have stock certificates. You, I believe, are from Florida as well. This is a Standard Oil company of which Rockefeller started, signed by Flagler, who was an original Floridian.
That's very significant.
That's what that is. So,
wow.
And
that's
in fact,
89? 1889? Is that what I see?
I don't know the exact year offhand. I can't see upside down. But here we give some explanation of Flagler as well and who he was.
I mean, he pretty much built Florida. So
right,
that's pretty cool.
Certainly the East Coast of Florida. So, and we have what I would consider other interesting things. I don't know if you know who Haile Selassie was.
I'm not familiar.
Haile Selassie was the emperor of Ethiopia. His uncle built the railroad in Ethiopia, and that's a picture of him. And in fact, you know, now that some drugs are legal in America, they show here, which is very old, a gat plant. And many people in Eastern Africa chew gat, in Yemen and here in Ethiopia, etc., as gives them a little buzz.
Okay.
So that's what that plant is.
Sort of like a similar to tobacco in a sense?
Something like that, yes, right. So that's what that is.
So you find yourself buying a lot more paper currency, right?
Mostly paper currency, but we have a lot of coins, a lot of tokens as well.
Yeah. What draws you to paper currency?
You know, I've done it my entire life. I've been in business for 55 years. My son works with me. He's worked with me since he's, 8 or 9 years old. So we do shows. We do primarily shows. This is the way we sell things.
Yeah. Is this like one of your biggest shows, the ANA?
Not necessarily. The fun show is our biggest, and it's really well organized. Yeah. It's very popular, etc. So
is that your favorite show, the fun show?
For sure, yes. And I've done it. In fact, here I have a badge from the fun show from 1990, but I've been doing it since the 1980s. I mean, even before we were in Florida, we would do celebrating or setting up at the fun show. So we would come down every year for the fun show, both in the summertime in July and in January. So
do you do any other like local shows in Florida, or is there other shows that you like to go to?
Not really, except on a rare occasion. We'll do a 2-day show in Jacksonville.
Okay.
We'll do a 2-day show in Tampa, for example, or something like that. So
how many shows do you usually hit per year?
Maybe 3 or 4.
Okay.
Not that many. We don't really do much promotion other than that. We have a built-in clientele for many things.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we do lots of things like we sell a lot of wholesale things, like these are French Nazi coins from World War II, which we would sell in quantity, of course. We have many bills in quantity as well. This, for example, is 100 Notgeld. You remember I was mentioning to you the silk Notgeld. This is all paper Notgeld. Again, we sell it 100 pieces for like $70 or so. And so that's what that is. This is Florida money. This is what, for example, Northwest Airlines, which used to fly into Florida heavily, would hand out these money coupons to be used. And they've made it from several different states that they flew into. So that's what that is.
Very cool. Yeah, how did you get started in collecting stuff like this?
You know, I was in the stamp business for some years.
Okay.
And I would travel. I would travel to Africa all the time. And in the stamp business, what I would do is I would make the postage stamps. I would have contracts with different countries. And I would make the postage stamps for different places.
Very cool.
And because I had this government contacts, they would set me up with places to go to buy primitive money, to buy coins, to buy paper money, to buy specimens, etc. Because I was in with the government.
Yeah.
You know, they treated me really well and took me up country. I've got lots of interesting statues and the like from Africa, etc. And I've done it all over the world. I've had clients in India, in Bhutan, for example, which in Tibet, Sikkim, I've been up there, etc. I've traveled all over, pretty much. So
yeah, I got one last question for you.
Sure, go ahead.
What, in your opinion, is the easiest way for someone to get started in collecting numismatics?
I'll tell you, the easiest way is to put one's hand in their own pocket, come out with change, and they're in the numismatic business.
Boom. There you go. It's easy as that.
Easy as that. They're in the numismatic business. They have something to sell for more than what it's worth, hopefully, for them.
Yeah.
Paper money is the same thing. They come in, they find a banknote with, for example, a serial number like 12344321, and they sell it for $500.
There you go.
That's it.
You just got to start looking.
You got to start looking, right? Put your hand in your pocket.
There you go. Is there anything else you want to mention or say before we wrap it up?
That's it. So
awesome. And could you real quick just say your name and your company for the...
Our company name is Number One Money Man.
All right.
And I'm Steve and my son is Alan.
Awesome.
So that's it.